Hey guys. Alright, so today we're going to talk about past continuous. The first thing that we're going to talk about past continuous is how to make a past continuous sentence. Now, I'm going to use present continuous to compare the difference between one and the other. So let's make a present continuous sentence. I'm going to say the sentence, I am dancing. As I said before, in a present continuous sentence, we have two verbs. We have the verb to be, or the auxiliary verb, and then we have the main verb, which in this case is the verb to dance. And we conjugate the verb to be in the simple present form. Then we conjugate the main verb, which in this case is dance, in the gerund form or in the continuous form. And that's why this is called present continuous. So if we want to make a past continuous sentence, the solution is pretty obvious. All we have to do is change the present part of the sentence and put it in past. So now, if I change this sentence into past continuous, I would say, I was dancing. Alright? So again, we have the same situation. We have an auxiliary, which is in this case, which is the verb to be. And then we have a main verb, which is in this case the verb to dance. The verb to be is conjugated in the past form, while the auxiliary, while the main verb, dance, is conjugated in the gerund or in the continuous form. Okay? And that's why we call this past continuous. To transform this into negative or into a question, we do the same thing that we always do. Say, for example, I want to transform this sentence into negative. I would change the auxiliary into the negative by including not right here. So the new sentence would say, I was not dancing. So in this case, we simply add not after was to transform it into negative. If we want to transform the sentence into a question, then again, we do the same thing that we normally do. We switch the auxiliary with the subject to make it into a question. So the question would say, was I dancing? Now, because normally we don't ask questions about ourselves, or we don't ask questions to ourselves, I'm going to change I for example, he. So the question is, was he dancing? Okay? Now let's see when we use past continuous. Okay, we're going to make a line here to represent our time. Alright, so in this line, we're going to have our future, our present, and our past. Right? Now, I'm going to divide this line into segments to represent days. So, for example, this segment over here would represent today. This segment over here would represent yesterday. Okay, let's say that, for example, I use the sentence, I went to the supermarket yesterday. Alright? Now, this sentence is in simple past because the action of going to the supermarket happened completely inside the segment of time that I mentioned. So I mentioned the segment of time of yesterday, and the action of the supermarket never happened before yesterday and never happened after yesterday. It happened completely inside the segment of time of yesterday. And that's why, for me, it's necessary to use a simple past sentence. Alright? Let me give you a different situation now. Let's say that I ask you the question, what did you do yesterday at 5? Okay? Now, let's imagine that 5 was more or less around here. So this was 5 p.m. Yeah? Now, if you answer, I went to the supermarket yesterday at 5, or I went to the supermarket at 5, your sentence would be incorrect. Because if you say, I went to the supermarket at 5, you are telling me that before 5, you were not at the supermarket. And after 5, you were not at the supermarket. So let's say, for example, at 4 5:59, you were not at the supermarket. And at 5:01, you were not at the supermarket. And that's impossible. How can you go to the supermarket for exactly 1 minute? All right. So what we need is to use a structure, a tense, that allows me to say, that gives me the option of saying that I did the action before and after a specific time. And that's when we use past continuous. So if somebody says, "What did you do yesterday at 5?" the correct answer would not be, "I went to the supermarket." The correct answer would be, "I was going to the supermarket." That's not the correct. Or maybe better, "I was shopping at the supermarket." Okay? Now, this sentence is in past continuous. And what this sentence is telling me is that I was shopping at the supermarket before 5 and after 5. All right? This moment right here represents a reference of time for the moment when I was shopping at the supermarket. All right? And this is now a more acceptable answer. All right? Let's think of a different example. Let's say that yesterday you called my house. Okay? And I use call in simple past because this is a specific action that happened inside the time that I mentioned, which in this case was yesterday. But let's say that before you called my house and after you called my house, I was sleeping. All right? So that means that the action of sleeping happened before and after the reference action. So in this case, the reference action is "you called my house." So I could say a full sentence and say, "I was sleeping when you called my house." Okay? So here I'm telling you in past continuous that the action of sleeping happened before and after a simple past action. And this is why we use past continuous tenses. All right? Okay, guys, that's everything you need to know right now about past continuous.